What's going on, guys? So now that the Kingdom Hearts 3 premiere event has been going on for almost an entire day now, I decided I would go ahead and report on some of the news that we found out so far. So one of the more interesting things that we found out was that Ralph would be a summon in Kingdom Hearts 3. We actually got to not only find out that he is a summon, we also saw some gameplay footage. And if you actually look at Ralph himself, you can actually see the scan lines on him because he's a video game character, and I really think that's an interesting attention to detail, and I'm really glad that they did that. It's something that Kingdom Hearts always has done. They really like to put these little details in that sometimes you can miss if you don't look for them. So his summon attack, he basically just builds blocks and makes traps for the enemies, and it's called 8-Bit Blast. We also finally got to see Ariel's actual summon, which is called Lagoon Showtime, and from the way it is shown in the demo, it looks very, very powerful, and it also looks pretty broken. However, since it's a demo, we can't really judge if any of the stuff in the demo is actually accurate to how it will work in the actual game, because the demo is clearly heavily edited, so it could potentially be completely different as far as power level. Another interesting thing that we found out from the demo is actually something people have been asking for an extremely long time, and that is to get rid of the speech bubble text that we've seen throughout the entire series. However, now it's actually been replaced. Now when you go and talk to an NPC, instead of there being a speech bubble prompt, it's fully voice acted audio with subtitles, just like any normal cutscene, and I think that's really interesting. The only real downside is we kind of lost an entire meme template in the process. So even with that being said, it's amazing to just see how far Kingdom Hearts as a series has really come, and this is just absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited to actually see this stuff actually happen. With that being said, another thing is Rex actually makes a Final Fantasy 15 reference. He mistakes Sora for being Noctis and says something along the lines of, "I've leveled you up to 47 and I still can't beat Bahamut," one of the bosses from Final Fantasy 15. Now I think this is really interesting, for one because they referenced Final Fantasy 15, but also because Noctis was always considered to be Sora's opposite. That was always the thought process behind Noctis to begin with. Also, since Noctis means night sky and Sora means air or sky, it's really interesting, and it actually makes a lot of sense that Rex would actually get them mixed up, and I think it's really clever, as this actually leads into a lot of fourth wall breaks, calling them video game characters. Another Final Fantasy reference is that there is an entire Dissidia section for all the action figures from the Dissidia Final Fantasy fighting series in the toy store, which is also a very interesting little reference. They're really getting kind of meta with all of these references, but at the same time I actually really like it. But with that being said, they also showed us some more plot points from Toy Story, like the blue-haired girl with the bunny ears is actually a doll that at some point kidnaps Ham, after young Xehanort splits the world into two to study the heart, like we saw him mention in the previous trailer before. We can also apparently guard in mid-air, which is something that we could never really do. We could always reflect in mid-air, but we could never actually guard in mid-air. With that being said, we also found out the names of a few Keyblades. We found out that the Toy Box, which is the name of the Toy Story world, its Keyblade is called the Infinity Badge, while the Kingdom of Corona from Tangled's Keyblade is called Ever After, and the Monsters Inc. Keyblade is called the Smile Gear. They also showed us a feature where you can switch between Keyblades whenever you want with the D-pad, which I actually think is a very interesting concept. Usually you have to go into the menu outside of battle in order to switch out individually. However, now that you can just switch out whenever you want, this actually adds in an entirely new strategic motive to the game, because if you have a Keyblade that you don't have very much magic with, you can always switch over to a Keyblade that has a lot more magic if the situation requires you to do so. I think that's really awesome, and it's going to make the gameplay a lot more interesting than Tetsuya Nomura also went on record to say that Kingdom Hearts 3 will be very dark in comparison to previous titles, and that the ending will be very difficult to accept. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I imagine somebody is going to actually permanently die in this series, which I think would be very interesting. If that is indeed the case, who do you actually think would die? Because personally, I think if anyone were to die, it would be Riku, especially with the meaningfulness behind him leaving the Way to Dawn behind. I feel like that would be the perfect send-off for his character. However, no idea really. It could be anyone, and honestly, due to the fact that Japan's culture absolutely hates character deaths, there might not be any official character deaths in the game. We never really know until we get it. But either way, it's still interesting to theorize and actually think about it in previous titles. Probably some of the most interesting news is that next month, early next month, which would be June, we're going to actually have the release date. We already know it's going to come out in 2018 this year, however we don't know when. However, we now have a release date for the release date, which is great. It's going to come out next month, early next month, which is about 2 to 3 weeks from now. Now, the thing is that E3 is on June 12th, which is in the middle of the month. However, the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra is going to be coming on a little while, a few days or so before E3. So it is possible that we may get the trailer with the release date at the orchestra instead of at E3. Similarly to how last year they didn't have a trailer at E3, however they had the orchestra at the exact same time and revealed the trailer there. Either way, it's really interesting to know that we're only a few weeks away from a release date for Kingdom Hearts 3. With that being said, they also gave us a little bit more plot details for the toy box, the Toy Story World. In one of the previous trailers, we see that young Xehanort had went there and wanted to know the secrets of the heart because something about that world was special. However, we now know that young Xehanort split the world into two, most likely Galaxy Toys and downtown where Andy's house is, in order to study the heart. He also got a lot of toys to join him, including a blue-haired girl with rabbit ears, which is very interesting. Some type of crazy doll, from what I understand, and apparently she kidnapped Ham, which is very interesting. A lot of screenshots actually had leaked before the official announcement, so a lot of people were a little confused as to who it actually was. A lot of people thought it might have been Aqua. However, we do in fact now know that it's just some random Toy Story original character, and it's really interesting. So I can't wait to actually see these characters actually interact, especially since the Toy Story world is actually canon to the Toy Story films. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for it to actually come out. So, what do you guys actually think about all of this news? What do you think the actual release date is going to be, and who do you think is going to die, if anyone's actually going to die? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.